Matthew Sinclair glided smoothly across Cascade Heights' shiny kitchen, Seattle's best seafood restaurant. He enjoyed creating the restaurant's hallmark dishes, especially the rare bluefin tuna he'd secured for tonight's anniversary dinner with Emma as executive chef. The delicate pink flesh succumbed to his knife, suggesting the perfect celebratory supper for his pregnant wife. However, intense stomach cramps left him slumped on their bathroom floor by midnight, Emma's frightened face swimming above him as she dialed 911. 6 months later, physicians couldn't explain his incessant itching, which had turned his torso, arms, and face red. The specialists had given up. His once promising career was hanging by a thread, and Emma was due any day. He first noticed the small movement under his irritated skin in the harsh bathroom light. Something living circulated through him. His blood froze after the microscope revealed. Like and comment. Keep the story going, along with the city you're observing. Seattle has historically had one of the most inventive culinary scenes in America. The city attracted national culinary talent due to its proximity to the Pacific Ocean and Washington State's farmlands. Matthew Sinclair had risen like a star. He turned Cascade Heights from a premium seafood restaurant into a 3-month-ahead destination dining experience at 30 years old. Standing 6'2" with sandy brown hair that draped across his forehead, Matthew had always been perfectionistic, which helped him succeed in fine dining. He looked dapper in his white chef's coat. He operated with surgeon-like precision with his strong, scarred hands from years of burns and knife nicks. Matthew was known for his technical proficiency and willingness to take chances, especially with raw seafood preparations that showed his source's exquisite purity. For 8 years, his wife Emma, a kindergarten teacher and retired nurse, was his balance. Her practicality balanced his creativity, and her medical training made her health conscious, which Matthew often overlooked in his pursuit of art. Now 7 months pregnant with their first child, Emma's honey blonde hair and pleasant smile still light up a room, but her blue eyes were now nearly always worried. Their relationship went as planned. Their finances had been depleted by the Ballard Craftsman home down payment. Everything seemed to be falling into place with Matthew's promotion to executive chef and their spring baby girl. They formed a college fund to provide their daughter chances neither of them had. Matthew's sous chef and best buddy since culinary school, Tyler Williams, was beside him through every career milestone. The two men had a professional relationship and a real friendship based on respect and a bit reckless pursuit of culinary authenticity. Tyler regularly urged Matthew to push limits and make foods that challenged guests' expectations, a concept that had won them critical praise but became disastrous. Weeks were spent planning the evening. 5 years of marriage deserved more than flowers and a card. It required an unforgettable experience for Emma. Matthew spent his week's only day off buying supplies from his best vendors. The centerpiece was a special nigiri preparation with 3 fish, each representing a milestone in their relationship: salmon from Pike Place Market, where he proposed, yellow tail from their Hawaiian honeymoon, and a rare seasonal bluefin Tyler had helped him acquire through a docks connection, which had arrived in Seattle that morning. "Are you sure?" Emma asked, looking at the jewel-like raw fish pieces on Matthew's ceramic tray from the restaurant. "I've heard about raw seafood during pregnant." Matthew pointed to another plate and explained why he cooked yours. "You must try mine. We met the fish market an anniversary ago. Trust me, I know my stuff." His confidence was usually contagious, and Emma smiled as she watched him cook their supper with the same intensity he brought to his professional kitchen. The supper was wonderful. Candles and their rarely used fine china transformed their modest dining room. Matthew lay aside his phone, unusual for a chef who was always in touch with his kitchen. He enjoyed every meal and enthusiastically described the flavors. Next morning, he didn't mind a small itching on his forearm. The mild red patch may have been an allergic reaction to Emma's new laundry detergent. Emma advised having Dr. Brennan look at it, her nursing instincts kicking in as she saw him scratching while making breakfast. Matthew rolled down his sleeves and said it was probably tension. "The restaurant critic is coming this week, so I need to finish the tasting menu. Seattle Times critic might make or ruin restaurant's reputation." All staff members spent weeks testing and perfecting dishes. As executive chef, Matthew felt intense obligation. A bad evaluation might hurt his career and his team's earnings. Itching was too annoying to ignore. By the night of the review, the rash had covered his chest and back in angry red areas that burned when he sweated in the hot kitchen. Also, cramps began. Brief spasms that doubled him over in private. He had to leave the dinner service to take 3 more ibuprofen and wash his face with cold water. "You look awful," Tyler murmured when Matthew rejoined the queue. What's happening? Nothing. Focus on table 7 halibut. Matthew snapped and regretted his tone. Sorry, just feeling pressurized tonight. The critic looked satisfied, lingered for dessert, and asking to talk with Matthew before leaving. Matthew was too focused on getting home and falling asleep to celebrate. 3 days later, with the rash spreading to his neck and the stomach problems worsening, he caved to Emma and went an urgent care center. A tired-looking doctor in his 50s diagnosed an allergic response without barely looking at the rash. Probably something you ate or a new cleaning product at the restaurant, he wrote on a prescription pad. Take these antihistamines for a week. Contact your healthcare physician if it persists. Emma frowned at the prescription. Why not test? A usual allergic reaction doesn't look like this. The doctor showed her a patronizing smile. Mrs. Sinclair, I see these cases daily. Your husband works at a restaurant with many allergies. Everybody gets the same treatment. The antihistamines had only made Matthew drowsy, which was risky in a busy kitchen with sharp blades and split-second timing. He stopped taking them after 2 days and used over-the-counter lotions for temporary relief. At work, despite the kitchen heat, he wore long-sleeved chef coats and applied hydrocortisone cream in the walk-in freezer when itching got severe. Consult an expert, Emma persisted one night, observing him apply calamine lotion to the inflamed regions. Matthew pledged without looking at her after the baby shower. Too much is occurring. He didn't tell her how the symptoms were affecting his work. Trembling hands, lightheadedness, and a continuous itch that made it impossible to focus on his precise plating. In a kitchen where perfection was the norm, people noticed his cuisine was deteriorating. Emma's mother planned a traditional baby shower at their country club with 60 guests, many of whom Matthew had never met. Knowing Emma valued his presence, he agreed to go despite swapping shifts with Tyler. Event day AM. He wincingly buttoned his dress shirt over his raw, sore neck after spending extra time hiding it with Emma's makeup. You clean well, chef? Emma, fixing his tie, stated her 7-month-old belly was round. Try wearing something other than kitchen whites more regularly. He said, I'll add that to my list right after sleep through the night without scratching myself bloody, trying to be funny but recognizing her fear. The country club's banquet area had mellow yellows and greens, exquisite floral arrangements, and a gift table. Matthew greeted Emma's father's business friends and accepted accolades from distant relatives with scripted gratitude. The continual small conversation was tiring, but he kept his cool until lunch was brought. His stomach sank at the first salmon mousse bite. As a wave of nausea and discomfort doubled him over at the table, sweat formed on his brow. Emma swiftly grabbed his back, her voice tense. Matthew, what's wrong? He couldn't breathe or answer through the pain. Faces blurred as he grasped the tablecloth as the room spun. Emma's mother's shocked expression as he slumped, shattering a crystal water pitcher on the polished hardwood floor, was his last memory. He woke up in the emergency department, with Emma's tearful face above him, while a doctor shone a penlight in his eyes. Mr. Sinclair, Dr. Harrington, what were you doing before you fainted? As they drew blood, checked his vital signs and studied his rash, which now covered most of his torso, the questioning continued. The violent red blotches didn't impress Dr. Harrington, a gray-haired emergency physician with decades of experience. It appears to be severe contact dermatitis with food allergies. Your blood work shows inflammatory markers, but nothing alarming. I'll recommend a dermatologist and a stronger antihistamine. Emma said this isn't hasty, relying on her nursing background. He has severe stomach pain, nocturnal sweats, and hot spots. Something's wrong. Dr. Harrington's face stiffened. Mrs. Sinclair, I understand your anxiety, but this happens often. Food service workers encounter many irritants. Nothing serious has been found after ordering the right tests. A younger doctor watching from the doorway entered as Dr. Harrington left. I need a moment, Dr. Harrington. The two whispered outside before the younger doctor entered Matthew's chamber. Dr. Alicia Myers, Mr. Sinclair. If it's okay, I'd like to ask you more about your symptoms. Dr. Myers took photos and extensive notes on the rash, unlike her senior colleague. Her queries were specific. Had he visited abroad? Did he handle uncooked fish? Any changes in rash pattern or sensation? Matthew grudgingly stated that it sometimes feels like it's moving under my skin. He was afraid this concern sounded ridiculous, so he never stated it. Dr. Myers nodded thoughtfully instead of dismissing him. I want to test more. Your symptoms match numerous parasite infections we rarely see, but given your employment, it's worth researching. Matthew spent hours in the emergency room for blood draws, skin scrapings, and a portable ultrasound of the most affected areas, all ordered by Dr. Myers. She said results wouldn't be instantaneous but would be expedited. In the interim, I'm prescribing a safer pain and inflammatory Medicat ion than what you've been taking, and please take photos, notes, and record any rash changes. Matthew was exhausted when they left the hospital. Emma drove home silently, one hand protecting her tummy and the other touching his arm to reassure herself he was still there. Matthew received a text from Cascade Heights owner Marcus Whitfield that night as he lay up itching despite Medicat ion. Talk tomorrow before service, my office, 2 p.m. The message chilled him beyond his physical discomfort. It was odd that Marcus wanted to meet yet didn't do casual check-ins. Matthew saw his suspicions were justified the next afternoon in the restaurant's modest office, sitting across from Marcus. Marcus, typically upbeat, was formal and distant. Matt, your food suffers. The scallops were under-seasoned, so Table 9 returned them last night. The night prior, the special was inconsistently plated. It's unlike you. Matthew said yes, I'm managing my health difficulties. Marcus bent forward, steepling fingers. You were seen by several employees, unwell, absent during service, shaky hands, sweating greatly. Customers are noticing. I need a few days to obtain proper treatment. You need medical leave. Marcus interrupted, his tone uncompromising. Paid. Obviously, I can't cook with you until you're better. Tyler can do interim executive chef. Words hit Matthew like a punch. Kitchen, menu, reputation, everything he'd built over a decade. One chat removed it. How long, he asked, voice tense. Marcus softened, saying it depends on you and your doctors. Matt, you're the best chef I've worked with, but focus on yourself. We'll be here when you return. Then, that evening, when Matthew applied yet another ineffectual lotion to his torso on the bathtub side, he discovered something that made him gasp. He noticed a little movement in one of his abdominal red welts under the harsh restroom lighting. He again sensed something moving beneath the irritated tissue when he touched it. He yelled for Emma with shaking fists. The mandatory medical leave seemed like banishment. Matthew had never spent so much time at home without the kitchen mess. Only the refrigerator hum and Tyler's phone pinging from Cascade Heights broke the stifling solitude of their abode during the day. Each message showed the world going on without him, his meticulously planned menu in someone else's hands. Emma, discovering him pacing the kitchen on her lunch break, told him to rest. She worked at an elementary school 10 minutes away and came home to check on him, which touched and infuriated him. Medical leave is for that. I'm a cook, not ill. When she looked hurt, Matthew regretted his words. I don't know what to do. In recent weeks, Emma had developed a habit of touching her belly. She whispered, the baby dropped yesterday night. Dr. Levine thinks that could signify an early birth. Matthew's fury subsided. How early are we talking? Maybe 2 or 3 weeks. She now wants twice weekly visits. Emma paused. I had high blood pressure at my last appointment. She worries about preeclampsia. Matthew was shaken by the news. Emma worried about something else while he was preoccupied. Why didn't you say? She answered, you had enough responsibilities. But she didn't want to stress him out with the underlying truth. However, they may have been reluctant to depend on someone who was already struggling. Matthew met with their financial advisor that afternoon. Their dilemma was becoming apparent. His medical leave would cover his base salary but not his performance bonuses, which helped them pay their mortgage. Emma's 3-month unpaid maternity leave and a kid on the way shattered their financial expectations. We have choices. In a Zoom call, the advisor assured them. However, his demeanor was somber as he listed those options: tapping into their little emergency savings, acquiring a home equity line of credit, or borrowing from Emma's parents. In response to the last idea, Matthew responded no. Robert and Diane Collins never wanted their daughter to marry a chef, whom they regarded unstable and beneath her. It was terrible to ask for money now that their suspicions were confirmed. The following week, a dermatologist diagnosed severe eczema, a gastroenterologist suggested work-related irritable bowel syndrome, and an allergist advised eliminating dairy and gluten. None of their medicines helped, and none could explain Matthew's regular movement. Dr. Myers was the only one who took his various symptoms seriously. She contacted to follow up after their ER visit and coordinated with his specialists. Her follow-up appointment revealed that routine testing aren't providing enough information. Your symptoms suggest many parasite illnesses, but standard screenings show nothing. Now what? Matthew tried to ignore the crawling sensation along his rib cage. A difficulty prevents me from trying more specific testing. Dr. Myers appeared uneasy. Your insurer denies it. They argue this is a pre-existing occupational condition and covered by workplace responsibility rather than medical coverage. That's crazy, Emma said. Without a diagnosis, how can they determine the cause? Dr. Myers sighed. Too bad Matthew mentioned his raw fish work. The insurer claims that working exposure would cause parasitic infections and should be covered by workers' compensation, not medical insurance. Workers' comp says, Matthew inquired, knowing the answer, they won't authorize a claim without a diagnostic linking the disease to job. Dr. Myers appeared sorry. It's catch-22. They couldn't afford the hundreds of dollars for specialized tests, especially with the baby coming. Matthew left the appointment feeling imprisoned in a system that didn't help individuals between diagnoses. Matthew scrolled through chef forums on his laptop that evening, searching for distraction. A discussion title caught his eye. Anyone else get odd fish handling rashes? Most concerningly, the article mentioned symptoms similar to his own: continuous itching, raised red spots, gastrointestinal discomfort. Chef who initiated thread mentioned strange sensations, like something moving under the skin. Matthew opened an anonymous account and described his symptoms. He received 3 private messages from other chefs with similar situations requesting complete confidentiality within hours. I nearly lost my job when word spread, wrote one. Luxury seafood restaurant in Chicago. Management worried customers would think our fish was poisoned if it became public. Did you get diagnosed? Matthew rushed to type. A parasite named Annie something was discovered by the doctor. Treatment was severe but effective. Had to pay cash, but couldn't risk my restaurant seeing it on insurance. Annie something. The parasitic worm Anisakis simplex, common in raw or undercooked seafood, was uncovered after Matthew spent the night studying options. The images made his stomach change into microscopic thread-like worms that might nest in the digestive tract and occasionally spread to other tissues. Emma paled when he displayed his findings the next morning. This matches your description, she said, perusing medical literature. Why didn't any doctor notice? Not that mysterious. Matthew said the forums say it's more common in Japan and coastal European areas that eat more raw fish. Few U.S. doctors see it often enough to recognize it. Regular parasite screens don't usually catch it. Matthew called Dr. Myers with this information, who agreed to order the Anisakis antibody test, but they would have to pay for it unless insurance would cover it. Tyler kept an eye on Matthew at Cascade Heights, visiting him after hours and bringing staff meals. Matthew gently raised the topic during one visit. Are chefs ever infected with Anisakis from handling raw fish? Tyler stopped with pasta on a fork. Actually, yes. A Portland Oceanic employee got sick a few years ago. Why? Matthew presented the research and stated his concerns. Tyler's usually cheerful face became solemn. Christ, Matt, do you believe you have that? Have you told Marcus? Not yet. My diagnosis is unclear. The restaurant industry is known for food safety scares. I need to be sure before saying something that could damage the restaurant's reputation. Tyler put his fork down, appearing worried. Think you got it where? The same suppliers and seafood are used. Shouldn't I have symptoms? It was an excellent question that had plagued Matthew. Perhaps my diet caused it. We got a bluefin for my anniversary supper. One from my docks connection? Tyler's expression changed. Yeah, that was high-end. Straight from the boat. Was it cold inspected to kill parasites? Tyler avoided his gaze. It was superb. Matt, I know nothing else. The chat made Matthew uneasy, which was heightened by their insurance company's email the next day. His request for specialized testing was rejected. He didn't recognize the letter's clause. In circumstances where the insured has expert knowledge of food safety regulations, self-inflicted conditions from voluntary intake of high-risk foods may not be covered by policy. Thus, as a chef who should have known better than to eat raw fish without parasite-killing freezing, he was accountable for his condition. Emma was furious. It's ludicrous. How may a legitimate medical condition be denied coverage? Since they can, Matthew said bitterly. I should have known better since they're right. Totally my fault. Stop it, Emma ordered. You did not harm yourself. Even if you erred, you shouldn't go untreated. She took her laptop. I'll investigate every patient advocacy group and medical aid program. Fighting this is necessary. Matthew researched online as Emma sued the insurance company. He joined private chef groups to discuss rarely discussed professional dangers. The stories of line cooks working through food sickness because they couldn't afford time off, pastry chefs getting serious respiratory issues from flour dust, and parasitic illnesses from raw seafood were eye-opening. Most disturbing were the stories of cover-ups, chefs pressured into silence by restaurant owners afraid of bad publicity, workers fired for filing compensation claims, and even suggestions that high-end restaurant groups maintained slush funds to pay off employees with occupational illnesses if they signed non-disclosure agreements. Matthew wondered if Cascade Heights had similar incidents before him. Several executive chefs oversaw the restaurant for 15 years. Had others gone through what he was? Had they vanished? Personal health issues caused their ailments, not industrial exposure. He became suspicious when he tried to see his full personnel records for a medical aid application. The HR director was curiously evasive, saying some records were archived and unavailable immediately. At his next session with Dr. Myers, Matthew brought printouts of his anisakis infection research and other chefs' accounts. After studying the materials, she remarked, "This is what I suspected. Larvae migration matches your symptom progression nicely." She regarded him. "I've also researched. I found a parasitology lab in Portland. They will perform the tests and negotiate the fee." "How much?" Matthew braced and asked. $3,000 for the whole panel. She said, "I know it's steep, but if we confirm anisakis, we may start therapy immediately." Seeing his expression, $3,000 were lacking with a kid due in weeks. Matthew felt the walls closing. He felt more movement under his skin that night as he tried to get comfortable in bed. Emma was asleep, one hand protecting her tummy. In the faint street lamp light outside their window, he cautiously lifted his t-shirt and shined his phone's flashlight at his body. His blood chilled at what he saw. Under the brilliant LED light, he could see a faint, sinuous movement beneath his skin, a delicate ripple that traced from one heated region to another. He recorded a video with shaking hands, holding his breath to stabilize the phone. It was clear when he replayed it. Something was exploring his body like an explorer in uncharted area. He told Dr. Myers, "I need that test now," and sent the footage. Dr. Myers called Matthew at 7:30 the next morning, frantic with work. "I got your video. The Portland Parasitology Lab will see you today if you can make it. I also contacted a tropical medicine colleague, interested in consulting on your case." Matthew drove to Portland for over 3 hours without hesitation. Despite his pregnancy concerns, Emma kept coming. "I won't let you do this alone," she murmured, preparing a modest overnight bag. "Additionally, I've scheduled a class substitute." The specialized lab was on the 3rd floor of a medical research building outside Portland. This area had clinically austere white walls, stainless steel equipment, and a disinfectant scent, unlike the cheerfully decorated doctor's offices Matthew had visited in recent months. Dr. Lawrence Chen, a slim, meticulous guy with wire-rimmed glasses, read Matthew's data before examining him. "The video you sent is captivating." After evaluating Matthew's swollen torso, Dr. Chen replied, "Based on your job and symptoms, anisakis is a strong suspect, but we need blood work and samples." "Take a sample," Matthew echoed, straining. Dr. Chen nodded. "Extracting one parasite intact lets us identify it and choose the optimum therapy." He pointed to a room with lab coats and people prepping equipment. "Local anesthesia is needed for a minor surgery. We'll make a small incision in an active spot to extract the organism." The brilliantly illuminated operation room included a surgical table in the center. Emma waited outside, pregnant and barred from entering. His heart raced as Matthew reclined on the table. Dr. Chen patiently described each process. "We found an active migratory tube below your right rib cage. Complete numbness is achieved using local anesthetic. You may feel pressure but no discomfort." Matthew closed his eyes and focused on his breathing like he did during the most intensive supper services when the needle administered the anesthesia. As expected, the pressure produced a peculiar tugging sensation that was more distressing in idea than reality. Dr. Chen said after several minutes of cautious work, "We have." Matthew didn't watch the technician transfer something to a specimen container. Seeing the thing inside him feed on his tissues was upsetting him. His throat bile rose at the thought alone. The rest of the exam went quickly. There were blood draws, skin biopsies, and thorough photos of the problematic areas. Matthew found Dr. Chen's professional distance oddly reassuring. This was a known condition with a defined protocol, not a mystery. By late afternoon, preliminary results were available. Dr. Chen confirmed it after studying data. Undercooked or raw fish likely caused your anisakis simplex infection. Marine mammals are the parasite's natural hosts, although people can become hosts by eating infected fish. "Is this common?" Matthew asked, feeling violated. "Much more common than reported, especially among sushi chefs and fish handlers. Many cases are misdiagnosed as allergies or idiopathic skin problems. Dr. Chen took off his glasses. Thank goodness we can treat this. Unfortunately, the treatment is vigorous and may have negative effects. The therapy would involve hospitalization, intravenous anti-parasitic drugs for many days, and surgery to remove any remaining parasites from tissue migration routes. Severe nausea, liver stress, and rare allergic reactions to dying parasites were side effects. Can someone help you through this process, given your wife's condition? The treatment would last several days, Dr. Chen asked. The phone sounded Emma's ringtone before Matthew could answer. He excused himself to answer the phone and entered the corridor. Matt? Fear gripped Emma's voice. I may be laboring. My water broke in the waiting room. It thought the earth was tilting. Emma was 34 weeks premature. The infant was unready. They were unprepared. They were 3 hours from home in an unfamiliar city. Stop moving, Matthew said. I'm coming right now, rushing toward the waiting room, forgetting his diagnosis. The next hour blurred. Emma was taken by ambulance to Portland Metropolitan Hospital, as Dr. Chen quickly informed the obstetrics department of Matthew's parasitic infection and suggested safeguards. Before Matthew arrived at the maternity ward, Emma was being prepared for delivery. The obstetrician said the baby's heart rate is upset. We must move rapidly. Your wife has preeclampsia and high blood pressure. Standing paralyzed in the delivery room doorway, Matthew realized he had to make a hard choice. Dr. Chen said his treatment needs to start quickly to stop parasite migration. The protocol required him to be at the infectious illness unit across town, but Emma needed him here. The preterm delivery of their child. Mr. Sinclair. A nurse softly stroked his arm. Are you coming in? Prepare to scrub and dress. His phone buzzed with a text before he could answer. Tyler arrived at Portland Hospital parking lot. Where are you? Matthew hadn't remembered texting Tyler about the Portland trip that morning, and his friend offered to drive after his job. New concept formed quickly. He told the nurse, "Give me 2 minutes," and returned to the corridor to contact Tyler. The conversation was brief but intense. Tyler went to Emma as Matthew had treatment. Matthew could watch the birth via video call. It was a terrible compromise, but the only one given the urgency of both situations. Matthew, his voice breaking, continued. Tell her I love her. So sorry, tell her. Tyler said she'd understand. Man, you're also battling for life. Matthew felt split when the infectious illness transport service took him to their unit. His heart was with Emma, while his body was taken in one direction. To prevent cross-contamination, the treatment center was cold and secluded. Matthew held his phone for Tyler's update, while the nurses started his IV line. He felt acid in his veins and nauseated after the first anti-parasitic pill. The medical staff warned him, but nothing could have prepared him for the reaction. Tyler's video call lighted up his phone when he vomited for the first time. Matthew saw Emma deliver their daughter through agony and drugs. The NICU crew quickly took the small preterm baby with a feeble whimper. Her eyes searched the room as Emma flushed with dread and exertion. Tyler turned the phone so she could see Matthew when she called. Matthew managed to mumble, I'm here, fighting another wave of nausea. Emma, I'm here. You did it. Beautiful woman. Emma said they're taking her to the NICU, crying, very small. Matt. She fights, Matthew said like her mom, forcing confidence he didn't have. As the drug took effect, the room spun. I adore you both. I'll get better and join you. Matthew succumbed to the treatment's terrible side effects after the call. His last thought as the drug took him under was of his newborn daughter joining the world as he fought to stay alive, both fighting forces beyond their control. His sedated state brought back memories of the anniversary dinner, the bluefin tuna's exquisite taste, and his delight in making the ideal feast. Somewhere in those memories was the moment an invisible invader entered his body and began its devastating trip. One idea formed as consciousness faded. He needed to understand how this had happened to protect others from the same fate. It hurt in waves. Each dose of anti-parasitic medication caused dramatic reactions as dead parasites released toxins into Matthew's bloodstream. His doctors warned him about side effects, but they were worse than he expected. He drifted in and out of consciousness for 3 days, only aware of the searing sensation in his body and the diagnostic voices of the medical professionals. On day 4, his strongest effects decreased, leaving him weak but lucid enough to understand his next treatment. The infectious disease specialist treating him, Dr. Reyes, was blunt. The treatment eliminated most parasites, but others have created deeper tissue migratory routes, especially in your face. They must be surgically removed to prevent harm and reinfection. Matthew tentatively felt the irritated spots on his jawline and right cheek. How horrible will it be if Dr. Reyes didn't sugarcoat it? To find and remove the remaining parasites will require many incisions. It will scar. How deep they embed and how your tissue heals determines the extent. The surgery took 4 hours. After seeing himself in his hospital room bathroom mirror, Matthew scarcely recognized himself. Black stitches held angry red incision lines across his right cheek and jaw. The tissue was swelled and discolored. The doctors told him most of the obvious damage would heal, but scarring was unavoidable. Your career, he whispered to himself. Looks mattered in fine dining. But executive chefs were more than cooks. They represented their restaurants in food magazines and TV ads. Marcus had trained him for that kind of exposure. Could that be conceivable with a parasitic war face? Matthew relied on Tyler's daily visits for contact. Matthew's pal brought restaurant updates, modified to protect his sentiments, but candid enough to retain confidence. Tyler reported one day that Marcus appointed senior sous chef Adrienne as acting executive chef. It's transient, yet, but he must maintain the restaurant. Matthew finished. Yes, I understand. Tyler couldn't soften Emma and the baby's news. Clara Elizabeth Sinclair was born at 4 lbs, 3 ounces, lungs unready for the world. She was stable but needed NICU care for weeks. Emma was recovering from a preeclampsia-related emergency C-section. After being discharged from Portland Hospital, she refused to return to Seattle without Matthew or Clara. Her motel is near the Children's Hospital, as told by Tyler. Her parents are there. The mention of Emma's parents tortured Matthew. Robert and Diane Collins had never hidden their dismay that their daughter, a brilliant nursing student with a Johns Hopkins admission letter, had married a cook with irregular hours and unknown prospects. They had been friendly but distant during their marriage. Politeness replaced warmth in their encounters. Have they seen Clara? Matthew hated how exposed the question made him feel. Tyler nods. They visit her daily. Emma gives me pics to share. He opened his phone and scrolled to a recent photo of a little baby in an incubator with monitors and tubes. The NICU lights made her skin transparent. Matthew choked. Survival was his daughter's goal. The infectious disease team said he couldn't hold her. He would stay contagious until all parasites were eradicated, which may take a week. Tyler said physicians indicate she's responding well to treatment. Her oxygen is rising. It wasn't enough. No amount was enough. Matthew should have held Emma's hand, protected his daughter, and made things right for his family. Instead, he was confined in a hospital 40 miles away, his body a battleground for invaders he had unknowingly encouraged with his professional hubris. Their financial predicament became brutally evident when the preliminary bills arrived. Emma's delivery and Clara's NICU treatment were covered by insurance, but the out-of-pocket payments were astronomical. The insurance company's denial exposed Matthew's therapy, which would drain their finances. The lodging fees for Emma's longer stay in Portland, the lost income from both medical leaves, and the mortgage payments that wouldn't stop during their crisis suffocated them. Matthew warned, "We'll lose the house," when their financial advisor planned an emergency Zoom call. No other option? The advisor said, "We may have unexplored choices," but Matthew stopped him. "Give me the truth. Neither of us works, and our premature infant is in the NICU. Medical expenditures will approach 6 figures. We're overwhelmed by the mortgage alone." Silence confirmed it. Their perfectly built lives collapsed. Matthew knew it was mostly his fault. Maybe none of this would have happened if he had been more careful, followed the food safety standards he taught to his kitchen crew, and listened to Emma earlier. Another unpleasant event stopped his gloom. Emma's father wanted his first video call. When his solemn face emerged on television, Matthew braced. "Matthew," Robert Collins began, his tone indicating barely repressed judgment. "Emma is unaware of my call. She's with Clara." "Is everything okay?" Matthew asked, quickly worrying for his daughter. "The baby is stable," Robert stated. "However, Emma is overworked, anxious, and doing things alone while you're indisposed." The small pause revealed his father-in-law's assessment of Matthew's condition. "After much discussion, Diane and I think Emma and Clara should move in with us after the baby is discharged. Live in Boston with you." Matthew couldn't hide his startled tone. Robert nods. "The space, resources, and stability Emma needs are here. Boston Children's can provide Clara's continuous medical treatment. Emma shouldn't worry about money on top of everything else." Matthew struggled to maintain his voice. "This is transient. We're struggling, but we'll recover." Robert maintained composure. Will you? Even without health concerns, the restaurant industry is fragile. But today, condition. He faintly pointed to Matthew's scarred face. Perhaps we might take a more realistic approach. Emma's sake. For Clara. The idea pierced deeper than surgery. Was his father-in-law recommending Emma leave him, or that she return to her parents' house until Matthew could rebuild their life, which now seemed impossible? Matthew said, I appreciate your concern. Emma and I must decide this. Robert's face relaxed. Of course. I'm offering a choice. Emma loves you and won't leave unless you let her do what's best for your kid. He hung up with that thinking. In his hospital room alone, Matthew felt his circumstances sink in. He had failed as a cook, spouse, father, and even a basic provider. His hard-won job had exposed him to a parasite that threatened all he loved. His face scars were the obvious symptoms of deeper wounds in his pride, identity, and future. Matthew cried uncontrollably for the first time since childhood that night. He sobbed for the tiny kid he couldn't touch, the woman he failed to protect, the home they would lose, and the goals that felt unattainable. Without witnesses, he allowed himself to admit his sadness in the hospital room's sterile silence. A new emotion emerged with sadness and rage by dawn. He was furious at the parasite in his body. Yes, however, the restaurant industry's casual attitude toward certain dangers, the insurance company's callous rejection of coverage, and the medical establishment's months-long dismissal of his symptoms were systemic failures. He was most angry at his hubris. The fury was strangely exhilarating since he believed his talent and experience made him immune to the hazards of his work. As the infectious disease team extracted the remaining parasites and monitored his blood work for complete clearance, it offered him something to focus on other than his personal suffering. Matthew asked more pointed inquiries. Parasites commonly came from where? How can fish be definitively detected before consumption? What were industry preventative standards? The responses infuriated him. Preventive precautions were simple. Before infecting humans, parasites can be killed by freezing at precise temperatures for specified times. The desire of freshness often overcame these efforts, especially at high-end restaurants where chefs prided themselves on presenting fish that had never been frozen. Dr. Reyes openly called it Russian roulette. You're usually all right, but likelihood wins. After learning how probability had caught up with Matthew Sinclair in the worst way, he made a silent promise in his hospital bed, face disfigured and future unknown. He would prevent it from happening to others at whatever cost to his culinary career. Matthew was discharged from the infectious illness unit 10 days following surgery. His parasites were gone, but their scars lingered on his face and torso. Matthew received stringent aftercare instructions, a follow-up schedule, and a large folder of medical data from Dr. Reyes for future insurance battles. You're lucky, Dr. Reyes said in their final consultation. In severe situations, anisakis can injure nerves or perforate the gut. You kept most parasites in subcutaneous tissue. Matthew wouldn't call his circumstances lucky, but he understood the doctor's perspective. He survived. Others with comparable illnesses fared worse. Tyler drove him to the Children's Hospital's NICU, where Clara was after extensive screening to rule out illness. Matthew saw his daughter for the first time. Except for monitor beeps and nurses' soft voices, the NICU was unsettlingly quiet. Emma was there, sitting next to their incubator-bound kid. After nearly 2 weeks apart, seeing his wife was almost as overpowering as seeing Clara. Emma was fatigued, with heavy circles under her eyes and a pale complexion from sleepless nights. But when she spotted Matthew, her face lit up with a relief smile that made her exhaustion disappear. She muttered, "You're here," embracing him gingerly, conscious of his healing scars. "You're here." Matthew hugged her, inhaling her hair aroma. "I'm sorry for everything," he whispered. Emma backed up to gaze at his face, drawing her fingertips near his angry red cheek lines. "Please don't apologize. None of this is your fault." However, Matthew could see her disbelief as she assessed his scarring as she spoke. Nothing said Emma couldn't do that, but there was fear about what these physical marks would signify for him, them, and their future. Emma led him to the incubator, saying, "She's been waiting for you." The nurses call her the most tenacious little fighter they've seen. Clara Elizabeth Sinclair looked impossibly small, dwarfed by the medical equipment around her, yet as Matthew approached, she opened her dark blue eyes like Emma's and seemed to glance right at him. That moment changed Matthew's heart. Pain from the past months and concern about the future faded. What mattered was this frail new life. He would redeem her whichever it took. Can I touch her? He asked the closest nurse. She said to open the portholes and put your hands in. She's stable enough to touch. Matthew delicately caressed his daughter's tiny fingers through the incubator's access ports. Clara grasped his fingertip tightly, shocking him. She knows you're her dad, Emma whispered. For several minutes, the three of them were a family joined for the first time, bonded by love and commitment over medical obstacles. Tyler, who had been quietly waiting in the corridor, broke the tranquility with news that would shatter it. Matt, he hesitantly entered the room. I need to tell you something. I'm sorry I didn't tell you months ago. Matthew was alerted by the serious tone. It's what? Tyler looked at Emma, then Matthew. I helped you get bluefin tuna for your anniversary dinner. Matthew sensed a chill unrelated to the hospital's air conditioning. How about it? Tyler, guilt-ridden, revealed it wasn't from our regular supply. I acquired it from a dock worker I know. He sometimes gets fish off boats before they go through distribution routes. He obtained excellent bluefin at a good price that way. You mean it wasn't checked? Matthew inquired, knowing the answer. Tyler nodded sadly. No inspection, no parasite-killing freezing. Straight from the boat to us. I assumed it would be fine. The fish looked great, and we've done it with others without problems. The news hit Matthew hard. His sickness, which caused his family's anguish, wasn't a coincidence or occupational hazard. An intentional shortcut by his best friend had put him at risk. Why do that? Matthew asked, unable to speak. You know procedures. You know their purpose. Tyler stated it was for your special meal, as if that explained everything. If you wanted the best, you could get bluefin caught the day before. This business just offers that. Matthew continued, his voice tightening, that food safety comes first in this business, even freshness. Tyler muttered, I know, his face crumpling. Since you started showing symptoms, I've been ill about it. But I was hesitant to admit what I'd done for fear of losing my job, your friendship. And then things became worse, making it tougher to confess. Matthew returned to the incubator with his tiny daughter still surrounded by medical equipment. They painstakingly prepared every tube, monitor, and day she spent in this sterile environment instead of at home in the nursery. Yet it all came from that one decision to bypass food safety regulations. I think you should go, Matthew whispered, not turning. Matt, please. Not now, Tyler. I can't handle this right now. Emma grabbed Matthew's arm after Tyler left. Despite his catastrophic blunder, he didn't intend for this to happen. Matthew agreed, but I need time to think. Still holding his finger, he gazed down at Clara. I must prioritize family. A nurse brought an unexpected message the next day, while Emma rested at the hotel and Matthew was alone with Clara. You received something at the front desk from Mrs. Sinclair. You requested immediate viewing. Emma's laptop and handwritten sticky note were inside. Open the Cascade Heights folder. You should see what I found. Love, E. The folder contains dozens of Cascade Heights Restaurant Group documents, emails, memoranda, and medical records. As Matthew browsed the files, a worrisome trend formed. At least 7 restaurant employees experienced parasite symptoms during the past 5 years. The corporation handled each situation internally, giving private medical care and cash compensation for non-disclosure agreements. Marcus Whitfield's email to the restaurant group's legal staff, 2 weeks after Matthew's symptoms, was most concerning. Possible Anasaki case at flagship. Now executive chef, recommended comprehensive private medical coverage per protocol. Position, appropriate compensation. A strong NDA is needed to keep this private. Previous cases were private. Matthew was astonished by the screen. Marcus knew. Having seen similar symptoms in other cooks, he recognized Matthew's. Instead of warning Matthew, instead of getting him medical attention promptly, Marcus bought Matthew's silence to protect the restaurant's reputation before implementing the company's containment strategy. Matthew's phone buzzed with Tyler's text as the ramifications hit. Just fired. Marcus learned I mentioned bluefin. Says I broke supplier confidentially. I deserve it, but they're attempting to contain it. Pieces fell into place with terrible clarity. Tyler made repeated mistakes with unlawful seafood sourcing. The restaurant company presumably did it regularly, one that valued fresh, never-frozen fish over staff and customer safety. Matthew remembered another recollection while processing this betrayal, one buried behind weeks of pain and drugs. It dawned on him that he'd eaten more raw fish that week than just bluefin tuna. He went fishing with Emma's brother Michael, a Boston visitor, 3 days before his anniversary dinner. Matthew proudly prepared sashimi on the boat for his brother-in-law after catching numerous salmon. He said it was fresh as they ate raw fish with soy sauce and wasabi on a little cooler lid. Matthew's palms shook at the knowledge. If the parasite wasn't bluefin-derived, what if he had caught and prepared the wild fish himself without the commercial precautions he depended on at the restaurant to be sure? He called Dr. Reyes. After Matthew recounted your symptoms' incubation and progression, Dr. Reyes confirmed. Both scenarios are feasible. Symptoms of anisakis may not appear for days. We can't pinpoint the source without examining samples from both fish, which is impossible. Ambiguity bothered and freed. Tyler violated professional ethics, yet he may not have caused Matthew's infection. Matthew couldn't prove that Marcus and the restaurant group caused his case, even though they had covered up a systemic issue. However, the entire incident was a serious failure of restaurant food safety standards, governmental monitoring, and his own personal habits. Cutting corners for culinary pride and profit hurt people. While processing these revelations, Matthew's phone rang with an unknown number. The caller introduced himself as FDA Office of Human and Animal Food Operations Investigator James Parker. According to Mr. Sinclair, Cascade Heights Restaurant Group may have violated food safety laws by handling raw seafood. You may have pertinent information. Matthew's heart raced. Contacted by whom? Parker responded that we're taking these complaints seriously but can't say more. Initial flagship site inspections have begun. A stranger sent Matthew an email after the call. You're not alone was the subject line. A secret forum where food service workers discussed parasite illnesses and other working dangers was linked in the message. Many related similar situations to Matthew's. Doctors ignoring symptoms, businesses pressuring employees to keep silent, and financial ruin from unrecovered medical bills. Matthew noticed the latest post. FDA recently arrived at Cascade Heights, Seattle. Whole team inspects. Finally, Marcus Whitfield's enterprise was exposed. Damn time. The message included a news article from hours before. FDA investigates upscale Seattle restaurant group after food safety allegations. The story quoted anonymous individuals who said the restaurant chain had repeatedly violated seafood handling laws and covered up crew ailments. Marcus Whitfield called Matthew again, brightening his phone. You did what? Marcus demanded directly. FDA is invading my restaurants. Their topics are parasites and staff ailments. I didn't call FDA, Matthew replied truthfully. Who did? Tyler. That ungrateful. Don't know who did it, Matthew cut in. But I know why. People grow sick, Marcus. I nearly died. Pressure on my wife caused my daughter to be born early. It appears this has happened to others under your supervision. Marcus spoke after a long silence. He went from angry to calculated. It seems we've got a major misunderstanding, Matt. The restaurant chain has always stressed food safety and employee health. I was unaware of any failures. We must unite while addressing valid concerns. A united front, Matthew reiterated. As with NDAs, additional infected workers signed. Another pause. You're ignorant regarding internal procedures. Maybe we should talk in person. The restaurant group will pay you well, covering all medical expenditures for you and your family. Please use moderation while we fix these regulatory issues. He received a bribe disguised as a settlement for his silence. Marcus provided Matthew with the financial security his family needed most. Matthew stood in the NICU watching his daughter fight for breath, knowing the medical bills would soon overtake them. The temptation was strong. Matthew found his answer, as Clara's small hand curled again around his finger. Marcus, discretion doesn't interest me. I want the truth, and I think everyone should know what's going on in high-end kitchens like yours. Matthew addressed culinary students, restaurant professionals, and food safety officials at a Seattle Convention Center conference room 6 months after the FDA probe began. Instead of fiery red, his face scars were light silver lines, still evident but not inflamed. When I was young, ambitious, and sure I would be the next great American chef, he adjusted the microphone and gazed out at the eager faces. Nobody warned me my career may kill me. No one told me that culinary excellence may endanger my health, family, and future. Today I'll share something I wish someone had told me. Journey to this point was difficult. Matthew became a key witness in the FDA's Cascade Heights Restaurant Group inquiry. After rejecting Marcus Whitfield's private settlement, the investigation swiftly went beyond seafood handling to include many company breaches, a systematic pattern of food safety violations, and legal intimidation and financial incentives to silence whistleblowers was disclosed in documents. The investigation resulted in the highest regional restaurant group penalties, The closure of 2 locations, including the flagship, and criminal charges against numerous executives, including Marcus. Matthew's case was the trigger that revealed the infractions, making national news. While investigating, Matthew and Emma fought their own challenges. Clara grew stronger in the NICU for 6 weeks until she reached 4 pounds, the discharge requirement. The day they took her home, not to their Ballard Craftsman, which they had to sell, but to a tiny 2-bedroom apartment they could afford on their severely reduced income, was bittersweet. The delight of having their daughter home was tempered by their reduced circumstances and uncertain future. The financial strain was severe. Even after a successful crowdfunding drive by sympathetic former co-workers, medical expenditures caused bankruptcy. Emma returned to nursing earlier than expected, working night shifts at a local hospital so Matthew could care for Clara during the day while he found a new path. The savings were gone, their credit ruined, their professional reputations changed unexpectedly. Despite these obstacles, unexpected assistance appeared. The chef community, known for fierce competition and poor working conditions, supported them. Former line cooks, pastry chefs, and culinary students sent cards, cooked, and babysat. Several famous chefs spoke out about their work hazards, sparking debate about reform. Reconciliation with Tyler was most startling. The initial betrayal hurt. However, as Matthew learned about the industry's systemic issues, he realized that his friend had been entangled in the toxic culture that had hurt them both. Their friendship will never be the same, but they found a way ahead by changing the practices that nearly destroyed them. In his speech, Matthew said restaurants are driven by passion. We work long hours in unsafe settings because we enjoy cuisine, creating experiences, and the exhilaration of a superb service. However, same devotion has been used to justify harmful practices and unrealistic demands. We're told that questioning these conventions means we're not good enough, and that true cooks take risks and reward. The weight of his following remarks made him pause and drink water. I believed, lived it. I nearly lost everything. Emma nodded encouragingly from the front row, holding Clara happily despite the congestion and unusual surroundings. At 6 months, she was smaller than typical but thriving, with delicate features resembling both parents. Developmental deficits predicted by doctors did not occur. Clara exhibited every sign of being a bright, attentive, and motivated little person, which had helped her through her traumatic childhood. Matthew told the crowd that my healing didn't start medically. I was called by Richard Williams, whose son had died 3 years earlier from an anisakis infection he caught as a line cook at one of Seattle's top sushi restaurants. Matthew received the call unexpectedly as he was considering his career. Richard Williams saw the Cascade Heights investigation coverage and recognized his son's story in Matthew's. The difference was his son Jason died. Too long undiagnosed parasite infection caused deadly intestinal perforation. Mr. Williams showed me his son's illness journal, Matthew continued, his voice heavy with emotion, page after page recording symptoms like mine, doctor visits that disregarded his worries, and work pressure to keep silent. The final entry was written 2 days before he died, when he was too frail to work yet frightened about losing his restaurant job. The diary was part of a wrongful death lawsuit that the restaurant paid out of court without admitting fault. The deal contained an NDA that prevented the Williams family from discussing Jason's death. The restaurant that had employed their son received praise for its traditional preparation methods, while they grieved silently for 3 years. I was transformed by meeting the Williams family. Matthew said, I understood my sorrow wasn't isolated. Unless someone spoke up, it would continue to claim victims. That's when I resolved to campaign for change on any platform. The choice had repercussions. Many in the culinary community saw Matthew as a traitor who broke the tacit code that kept the industry's deepest secrets. Former co-workers avoided him. Potential employers feared working with a whistleblower rather than a chef. Some reached out in solidarity. He was asked to teach occupational risks and safety advocacy at a top culinary school. An industry liaison role was offered by a food safety NGO. Most importantly, a group of ethical restaurant investors had asked him to help on a new concept that prioritized staff well-being and authentic culinary experiences without compromise. Matthew assured the audience that change can be achieved without compromising quality or authenticity. Correct raw fish freezing doesn't degrade the product. Reasonable hours don't degrade a chef. Prioritizing safety doesn't devalue creativity or tradition. He pointed to slides displaying modern food safety equipment and preparation methods. Harbor Table, where I'll be culinary director next month, is incorporating these ideas. Every meal we serve will meet or exceed safety standards while still providing the experience our guests demand, and our team will undergo extensive occupational risk and worker rights education. Audience murmuring followed the announcement. After months of rumors, Matthew's restaurant return was confirmed. The project developed gradually. The investor group, led by a tech executive who had a similar parasite illness after a business meal, was formed from FDA inquiry and media coverage and dedicated to building a model that other places may replicate. Matthew said his job will be different from executive chef. I'll create menus and train staff, but also collaborate with health officials and industry groups to establish best practices. Since our operational model starts with acceptable timetables, I'll be home for supper with my family most nights. Emma smiled at the family reference. Their marriage had suffered in recent months, especially during Matthew's sorrow, believing he had ruined their future. Emma's constant support and practical resilience helped him heal, and her nursing skills were crucial. The event enhanced their partnership in ways they never expected, making it feel unbreakable. I want to acknowledge my wife Emma's remarkable strength, Matthew added, softening. She has inspired me and supported me through this. She never lost sight of what we had and what we could achieve together, while I focused on what I'd lost, my work, reputation, and health. Emma didn't just help him recuperate, she helped reveal the systematic neglect of Cascade Heights. Her medical training allowed her to spot anomalies in the documents they gathered, and her rigorous evidence gathering produced key material for the FDA probe. Emma said, "If we don't speak up, someone else will suffer the same manner or worse." When Matthew hesitated to share their tale for fear of their already terrible financial circumstances, Matthew reminded the audience that his hardest lesson was that professional brilliance cannot compromise health and safety for cooks, workers, or guests. Do not praise or perpetuate a culture that says differently. It needs changing. The presentation closed with a full explanation of Matthew's Food Safety Foundation with the Williams family. Food service workers with occupational diseases and injuries would receive education, legal aid, and financial assistance from the Jason Williams Foundation. Harbor Table's earnings would support the foundation, providing a sustainable funding model that other restaurants may adopt. As the audience gave a standing ovation, Matthew felt mixed emotions. He was proud of his accomplishments, grateful for the support, and grieving what was lost. His face scars will always remind him of his ordeal, but they no longer defined him. They were just one of a broader story that had gone from sorrow to advocacy. When participants lined up to talk to him after the presentation, a young culinary student was crying. "My brother worked at Cascade Heights 2 years ago," she replied. "He got sick like you. The restaurant paid for private treatment and required him to sign confidentiality agreements. Was never the same. He gave up cooking. I appreciate your speaking up when he couldn't." As Matthew's narrative circulated, these encounters increased. Each one strengthened his resolve to follow his course despite its risks. His experience gave people hope and permission to acknowledge their misery and seek better conditions. The quiet culture was breaking. Matthew watched Clara sleep in the rocking chair next to her cot that evening in their quiet apartment. Emma joined him on the chair arm, placing her head on his. "You were great today," she whispered. "So proud of you," Matthew said. "I couldn't have done any of it without you," taking her hand. "Sometimes I can't believe how much our lives have changed in a year." Emma gestured to their sleeping daughter to clarify that not all changes had been terrible. "Some are perfect," Matthew agreed, feeling so grateful it hurts. They sacrificed their financial security, professional status, and comfortable future, but they gained purpose, perspective, and a deeper knowledge of what mattered. "Harbor Table's soft opening is next week," he said. "Are you worried about your parents?" Emma grinned. Now they understand. Dad boasted to his golf pals about his warrior son-in-law last weekend. Never imagined this day. Emma's parents' reconciliation was another surprise. Robert and Diane Collins wanted to save their daughter from a failing chef marriage. They saw Matthew go from desperate victim to determined champion. After learning about Matthew's infection, its systemic causes, and his devotion to solving them, their perspective changed. They even gave a large anonymous donation to the Williams Foundation, showing their growing regard for their son-in-law. "We'll be fine, right?" Matthew asked, referring to more than money. Emma kissed him carefully, avoiding the uncomfortable wounds. As they sat in the quiet nursery, Matthew considered the weird voyage they had taken. He was ambitious, propelled by professional achievements, and sure of his direction a year ago. His work, priorities, and view of success had changed, giving him a sense of purpose he had never had before. The parasite in his body took much from him, but also disclosed realities he might never have known. He found a calling beyond personal success in battling for his life. Overcoming his innermost anxieties had given him strength he didn't know he had, and rebuilding from his old existence had created something more important than he could have imagined. New obstacles, harbor tables, last preparations, foundation partner meetings, and continued therapies for his physical recovery and Clara's development awaited him tomorrow. Matthew Sinclair was finally at peace with his life's unexpected route, wounds and all, tonight in this quiet introspection with his family. We frequently think we've learned life's lessons and are safe as we become older. Matthew Sinclair's story shows that pride may be our biggest weakness, regardless of age or skill. How many of us have rejected a doctor's warning, neglected a persistent discomfort, or compromised our health for convenience? We've made it in the world with careers and families. Confidence sometimes blinds us to obvious risks. Matthew nearly lost his career, health, and house, but he realized what many of us learned too late: our ultimate legacy isn't professional or financial achievement. We've suffered to save others. Like wisdom lines on our faces, his scars convey a story of anguish turned into purpose. Remember Matthew's tenacity when health or financial issues threaten our hard-earned retirement. Turning personal tragedy into real change that helps others is never too late. Whether fighting insurance companies, campaigning for decent medical care, or rebuilding life after severe sickness, that's graceful aging.